Okay, hi everybody. This is Jason Sherman here, getting started with our webinar. Today we're going to be talking about um, zombies in your data center. I was going to say zombie cables, but we're going to talk about those too. And don't call Ghostbusters. So obviously, with this being October, it's an appropriate topic, I think, those zombies in your data center. So let's get started here. Page down. We're going to be talking about, I've got some polling questions I'm going to bring up. Just a quick overview, and then we'll see net terrain in action. Some of the things we're going to talk about. So let's switch over and let me bring up a polling question here. Let me go to the polls and let's see. I'm always a little see if I get this started here and launch. All right, here we go. Should be launching now. Do you currently use a tool to manage your data center? We got DCIM, we got spreadsheets, Visio, coworker who knows everything, of course, and other. So if you guys could submit your results there. Yeah, it's a second to do that. All right. Okay. Let me hit the close poll here. We'll see what the results were. Oh, DCIM tool and spreadsheets. So a little both. I'm surprised we don't have Visio in there. Usually that's a pretty good winner as well. Let me switch back to the PowerPoint. Hopefully you guys still seeing that. So how does NetTerrain help eliminate zombie assets, servers, cabling racks, etc.? Use cases, maximizing racks and space, easily manage your space and equipment. So one of the things I'll be showing and talking about, of course, rack and stack, just rack elevations, DCIM type stuff. How does that help you? Well, one, you can get into reporting, obviously, see what you have, where it is. Also, things like doing discovery, SNMP, finding out objects that are out there you may not be aware of, and sort of dealing with those, obviously turning them off, getting them out of your data center when they're not needed, which gives you rack capacity back, power back, and maybe, stop paying for even maintenance and support on certain things, equipment. So that's always helpful as well, at least the bean counters like that. So easily and accurately plan capacity. So I'll help you plan out capacity as well. Use cases, simplify cable and circuit management. We'll be showing and talking about that and reduce power costs, PoE. So that's polling question 1 we already did. So let's jump over to polling question number 2 here. And let's see, that one's closed. Let me go to polls. Bear with me for a second while I try and find the second one. And oh, here's number 2 down here. And let me launch this one. So this one is most interested in seeing today, handling servers, cabling, maybe energy costs, maybe saving space in the data center. So let us know which one you might be interested in. Try and focus on some of those. I'm going to stop my share for a second. I'm going to reshare. I'm going to go jump over to one of my demo project here environment. And let me get that shared up. Let me close that. I'll give you a second to finish the polling questions. And I'm going to share my other screen here. Should be that guy here. So net terrain. All right, let me switch back to the polling questions and close the poll. Yeah, we got servers and cabling. Cabling's kind of the bigger one, and then some energy cost stuff. So let's talk about what you can document in NetTerrain, kind of how it works. So we are a tool, DCIM, an outside plant, allows you to document your data center as built, top to bottom. As far as getting the documentation sort of created, I'm going to navigate some drawings here. I'm just going to go through our hierarchy. And what you're seeing here is not how you have to document in your network. This one is sort of a deep hierarchy of different locations, multiple buildings, a lot of fiber plant, outside plant cabling and things like that. But I'm going to jump down into one of these buildings where we have data center so we can talk about some of those servers and cabling and things like that. So our tool, it's hierarchical. Again, you can kind of reflect as built. How do you get data into a tool like ours? Well, we allow you to do things like CSV import. So if you have Excel spreadsheets or you just want to populate the data with Excel, you can certainly do that. Populate it and then bring the data in that way. So that's all good. We also do integrations with things like ServiceNow, SolarWinds, etc. We also have the ability to do SNMP discovery. So if you want to track devices, discover devices through SNMP, we have a tool that allows you to do that within the NetTerrain. This is the NetTerrain software suite. And you can also get into doing things like power over time or data over time and seeing sort of trends and charts and that sort of thing. So those are things you can get into as well. I'm going to just zoom in on this. This particular diagram is showing rack elevations. I'm going to get into in just a second. You know, one of the things you get into with tracking servers, cabling and other things is of course capacity planning. Somebody asks you to put a server in. Where are we going to put the server? Do we have rack utilization? Do we have rack space for it? Do we have power for it? And so on and so forth. So a tool like ours, you can get an overview, like in this case, visually red cabinets. I'm looking at them based on rack utilization right now. I can switch this over to power by going to the left-hand side and saying, okay, well, just show me things based on power. And do I have power anywhere? Or by even weight. If you need to track weight for whatever reason, you can do that too. It looks like most of our racks are overweight. They need a diet. So we need to get rid of some servers maybe. So rack utilization for us is, of course, how many rack units do you have? How many are being consumed by the devices that you have? And being able to show that. So visually, if I double click on a cabinet, we have cabinets that are single container, double container, multi-container cabinets. This one's a double with, you can see the devices on the left-hand side represented by the front of the cabinet. On the right would be the back. So I'm not really rack mounting things on the back in this example. You see a lot of connectivity and other things, which I'll talk about in just a second, but these would be different devices. One of the things you'll notice is they reflect sort of what the device is, what it looks like from the front. How many rack units is it? This one's a 1U, a 4U. It consumes the space and so on. So it allows you to obviously visually see the cabinet, consume the space in the cabinet. And then we use that information to, of course, show that rack capacity. So you can start to understand, what racks you have, what the capacity utilization and that sort of thing. We have some counters in the bottom as well, tells you how many devices, free ports and other things that you can see too. So those are automatic, it just does the counts and stuff for you, which is nice. So if we jump down into a device, again, talking about capacity management, you want to know how many ports you have, how many ports are free. In this case, you can visually see connectivity, where I can see the green ports, they're in use. They actually have a physical connection to them, an Ethernet cable or whatever the cable type is. We can click on that and see that on the left. And we can see what it connects to, in this case, a patch panel, which we could double click and jump over to that patch panel. So if we want to see that and go back as well. So how does this help us again from capacity planning, again, finding sort of the zombies out there? Well, obviously you have ports that are in use or not in use. If they're not in use, you might take the cables back or at least know that you have ports in use or not in use. Now, if you get into like SNMP where you're actually monitoring the port, getting down to the level of, hey, what's the status of the port? Is it actually on or off? Then you can get a little more detailed. But you can also get it from here from the standpoint of if you're doing physical connections, being able to see those physical connections port to port, how many ports are in use. And you can see in this case, we actually have some colors where the changes colors based on the fact that you have a connection. So again, you have to do an installation. You need to connect to a switch port to put whatever process in place you need to do. Allows you to go and see visually, hey, where am I going to put this? Where do I have rack space? Where do I have physical connections where I can connect everything up that I need to? And so on and so forth. So you can kind of, hopefully that helps in some way from a planning standpoint as well. If you are doing planning, you can plan to do installations of things. You can right click and add a task and basically say, this is a planned object I need to insert. This device, I need to put it under a certain work order number. I need to decide who owns it, when's it going to be done by, and that type of thing. So again, from a planning standpoint, you create a task, and close this out. And you'll see, you know, there's an object in here, but it's doesn't look like the object anymore because it's visually telling you, hey, this thing is really in a planned state. And you can plan the cabling, the cards, and other things that go with it. So you have tasks and work orders that go along with it as well. But again, going back to sort of the original topic of finding things that are in use or not in use. So if you are doing monitoring, you're monitoring devices, you realize, hey, there's a device that you need to sort of take out of the system. Being able to find those objects, know where they are, it's very important. Obviously, if you've documented objects, it's nice because you can come into the system and do a search, find the object, and then decide what you need to do with it. Do I need to remove this? Does it need to be moved to a different server? Does it need to be taken out completely? Right. So that's physical, obviously hardware that you're keeping track of at that point. Again, we could do that also via like SNMP, doing a discovery, finding things, mounting them. And then if you need to obviously track or do a change, you can do that. From a cabling standpoint, right, as I was kind of showing already, you can do cabling, either power cabling. Of course, you can also be tracking things like your cards, like we have in here. But power, if you want to track console, or if you want to track actual power devices, you can get down to the device level where you actually show the power module. And then where does that module connect? What PDU is it connected to, right? So you look at the PDU and go, oh, there's the PDU we're connected to. There's the power. So we can see very quickly what power we're on. And this PDU, you can see all the devices that it's running. So if there's a problem, or if you have to there's electrical work you need to do, I can zoom in on this. I can jump over to the load side and see where the power is coming from, right? Or where does this power come from? Well, it comes from a circuit breaker, that kind of thing. So, you know, there's a lot you can track in the tool, and helps you keep track of. Once you do have data in the system, you need to track things, you need to get rid of things, you need to know what you have, what's out there. You have all this data in NetTerrain. Some of the other things you can take advantage of is reporting. So we can go and run a report and say, hey, let me see all the assets that I have. Let me see assets of this type, right? Again, you go back and say there's certain servers that we don't use anymore, we want to get rid of. We can click and actually visually see a table view of data. We can see it obviously in a chart. So bar chart, pie chart, you know, nice sort of management style type charts. But again, you can see the underlying data as well. Again, help you make those decisions, what devices are out there. So you decide what you need to do with those. We can export these to Excel and CSV, and then you can do even more work in Excel if you need to sort of sort the data out, that kind of thing. So go back. You also have another reporting mechanism. So you have those nice graph chart type things, but you also have the ability to go in and tools, query, and build other reports. You can build reports on the fly. You can also recall the reports. So I have one here called maintenance. I can come in here and run that and see the results. And again, export that out if I want to. You can sort the data in here as well. So if there's something specific you need to do, you can sort those out. So hopefully that's helpful. But we go back to here. So again, what you track is really up to you. because you can really track anything in that terrain. I mean, I've got things like fire extinguishers and cameras and other things. So it's not just about servers and routers and switches, although that's usually the primary, especially if you're doing cabling, where you want to see all those cables and how they all these things connect together. I didn't really talk about the cabling from the standpoint of things like fiber. You can definitely do fiber cable and strands and report on those as well, where if you want to see all the strands for a given cable and where they connect to, this shows you all the strands on the left-hand side, each strand number, and then where that strand connects on each end, where it terminates. So also a nice thing you can get into and see. Um, so with that said, I also will mention with respect to cabling, if you need to track things like conduit, you need to track capacity within the conduit. You can put conduit in between floors, like in this case, where you see capacity management on the left, that'll give you fill percentages based on the number of cables that are in that conduit. Or you can do things like tracking wiring trays. So we would have a tray and where it runs, and then you can see all the cables that are in the tray. You can actually bring up a list of cables in the tray as well and see, oh, here's all the cables. So if anything were to happen to the tray, or if you needed to add more to the tray or whatever it happens to be, you can do that kind of tracking. So that's something you obviously manage and decide the level of detail you want to get into in our tool. Certainly things you don't have to do. That's totally up to you, but it does allow you to help track servers and switches and routers and cabling, so you can find things, get rid of things that are not needed, of course. Um, and again, some of this you can automate because we do integrations with ServiceNow and SolarWinds. We have SNMP Discovery built in. We have other integrations as well, so you can get into that. So I'm going to stop my share here and just see if there's any questions out there. And let me take a look, Q&A, see if there's anything there. So if there are, just throw it in. So on. Oh, import data from Netbox. That's a good question. I don't know if I have a connector to Netbox, but so there's two ways we get data. We can get it through an API, and most tools have REST APIs, so we can build a connector pretty easily to different systems. Also, if they have an export mechanism, CSV, that's very easy to import because it's Excel, and we have that sort of built in, and that's always ready to go. So if you need to do that, that's a good way to go. Yeah, there's always the question when you start with a tool, whether it's our DCIM product or somebody else's. It's how do you get started and how do you make it so you can get the data in efficiently. And we do try and give you a lot of ways to automate and be efficient from the standpoint of, again, doing Excel or those integrations we have, doing your own SNMP discovery, those types of things. So there are a lot of options there with the NetTerrain product that you can use to help you automate and hopefully save time, right? Which is always kind of the important thing. So there's those things, there's those items. From the standpoint of like cost and other things, if you're looking at a tool like ours, certainly you can reach out to us and we can talk to you about different options. We do hosted option. You can host it yourself as well. There's different ways of licensing the tool. So those are always good things to kind of reach out and talk about. If you need a more in-depth demo, if you need to try out the tool, just reach out to us. We're happy to help talk to you about what you're doing, your project is, and just make sure it's the right fit, right? So with that said, I don't see any more. Let me check the chat. Maybe somebody put something in the chat. So I just want to make sure I didn't do anything there. So that's all good. And I don't think I closed out the other poll. So give me 1 second here. And let me just make sure that one got closed out, the second one. So yeah, I don't think nope, I guess it was closed. Yep. So anyway, well, thanks for your time. I think the thing to take away, obviously, it's easier to make decisions about your data center's infrastructure when it is documented in some way. So again, whether that's our tool or somebody else's tool, you will find, I think, having that documentation will help you make those decisions, help better manage those assets that are out there. Hopefully find assets that you're not using anymore so you can get them out of the system and get some of that space back, whether it's cabling or racularization or whatever it happens to be. So hopefully that's all helpful. But anyway, thank you guys for your time. Really appreciate it. This recording will be available at some point, so I'm sure you're getting an email about it. But if you have questions, please reach out to us. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.